Hello, my name's Janet Gough and I'm the former Director of Cathedrals and Church Buildings for the Church of England. I think this is such a clever and simple idea, and I'm absolutely delighted to be able to talk a little bit about English churches in the context of what we're doing across Europe. Well, I'd like to perhaps tell two very brief stories about two very different historic church buildings in England. And the first one is called St. Peter on the Wall, and it's a tiny 7th century single cell deserted church on the Essex coast. And it is one of the oldest churches in England. Indeed, it is one of the oldest intact buildings in England, full stop, so it's very special. And it's in a remarkably good condition, and it's very well loved, even though it doesn't have a parish of its own. So it's looked after by the local parish and the local parish priest, with some support from Chelmsford Cathedral, but is much visited by walkers, and especially in the summer where special services are held. And I was absolutely delighted when one of the first UK government Church Roof Fund grants was awarded to this extraordinary bit of Europe's heritage. I think my second inspiring story comes from a very different context, and it comes from Leicester. And Leicester, as I'm sure you know, is a city in the Midlands which has benefited from a lot of immigration recently. And in 2012, King Richard III, who is the last king to have died in battle on English soil in 1485, I think, was dug up about 50 metres away from the cathedral under a car park. And after a bit of toing and froing, it was decided to reinter him in full honours in Leicester Cathedral. And it was absolutely heartwarming to see on the day of the funeral, or the reinterment, the streets of Leicester absolutely thronged with locals, multi-faith, multicultural, all cheering their king on. And they even say that as a result of this event, which all took place around their cathedral, Leicester Cathedral, Leicester City Football Club won the Premiership a year later. And I think my point in telling these stories is, first of all, that our religious heritage is enormously appreciated, not just by worshippers, and we need to get out and celebrate it more. And the other thing I think we need to do, particularly in England, where we have had a model of voluntary support of these church buildings, so they are all looked after locally, which is a very strong idea, but also paid for locally, and some access to, or people fundraise from the Heritage Lottery and from other sources, and occasional grants. But as we all know, religious affiliation is changing in Europe, and I think what that means is that we need to get much more creative and nimble about how we manage and look after these buildings. And the consensus today in England is that two of the great solutions are increased community use and engagement, and also more sustainable support from the government. Thank you very much.